Here we go, guys. Welcome back to Chain Spotlight, where we explore the intersection of blockchain technology for shaping the future. And today we are have a special guest also from the Omnity Network. So we have with us a special guest called Sheldon. Hi, Sheldon.
Hi, Pep. Good to be with you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. How are you, Sheldon?
Good, good. As an American, I'm very happy that we're getting through November quickly.
Yeah. So you want to go quickly to January, right? I know it. 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 So it is like the almost crypto people a good news, including you. I believe it. And congratulations. So before we start talking about Omnity, I want to know first about yourself first because this is important for our audience. Like they want to know how's the background of the team projects, how they
Sure, sure.
experience, how the story.
Sure, sure. So I can give you the short version, and you can ask me questions if you think I'm skipping something. I'm definitely
Yeah,
skipping something.
yeah.
So I learned about Bitcoin before the network started. Um, the white paper was announced on Halloween before the network started. And for whatever reason, I remember this on TV in Miami. I read the white paper. I thought it was very interesting, and then I stopped thinking about it. I was focused on college. I was focused on starting my own business, and I think I owned $20 in Bitcoin, which I misplaced. I lost it. Um, but in 2012, I was working for an IT security company, and that company they had a really big client called Yum Foods. Yum owns Taco Bell,
Yeah.
KFC, many big retailers for food. And somebody in Illinois city in USA, somewhere in Illinois, uh, they plugged in what's called a rubber ducky, a little USB malware that fried the USB port on that computer, and that software that was plugged into the computer was a worm that mined Bitcoin through an application called CoinHive on about 20 computers. These computers were the responsibility of a franchisee, not us. So we were responsible for the network security, and we saw Bitcoin mining, and we had to do a lot of research about Bitcoin to understand it, make a report to Yum Foods, help them solve the problem about this sort of unintended mining, right? Malicious mining. During the research process for this, I saw Bitcoin all over the world. I saw network operators in China and US and many other places. And I realized this was the political movement and the technology movement also that I was looking for. And ever since then, I've been very busy. Between 2012 and 2016, you can find me on a few forums just very slightly because I try to stay quiet, mostly read and not write very much. But yeah, I've been actively researching since before Ethereum started, and I'm very lucky that I joined Omnity Network in 2021. It was a different brand back then, but I read their white paper just a few months before, and I said, "This sounds really cool. I'd love to learn more." And a few months later, they said, "Hey, maybe you could learn more, and maybe there's something you can do for us." So it's been a few years, but I'm very happy working for this company, and I'm sure that I'll stay here for quite a while.
Cool. So I heard that you know Bitcoin before the network is start. It is correct?
Yes,
How how
2008 they released the white paper. Yes.
how you know that? Where do you know that?
So the white paper, it was published before the network was started. There was
Yeah.
a 3 months period where people could read the white paper and decide if they liked it. And I'm sure many people online were discussing this, and people were thinking about if they should run a node or start a business or mine some Bitcoin. It wasn't me. I just read the white paper and thought it was very interesting. But a year or two later, people are asking me, "Hey, how do I do this Silk Road thing? How does Bitcoin work?" And I can tell them how Bitcoin works. And one of the things I told them was that money might not be there in a few years. The government might come, try to clamp down on this. Be careful. And I'm very glad I was wrong. In 2012, when I saw it again, that's how I knew that Bitcoin was going to last.
Yeah, yeah, that's very you know, you are a true OG if you know Bitcoin before the network start and you learn about that white paper. And how you feel that right now Bitcoin is almost $100,000. And if
Yep.
back then when you know the white paper and you see right now it is too fast or it's really quickly fast for growth of Bitcoin with, you know, one of the big news is happen, like Trump is going to be all in, I can say, in the Bitcoins.
And there was $5 billion in traditional finance moving through
Yeah,
Bitcoin. So yeah,
yeah.
it's exciting times for sure.
It's exciting time, and this why a lot of people, a lot of developers, a lot of, maybe I can call, some idea come to how to maximum the Bitcoin, Bitcoin network, because
Hmm.
it is huge market cap, it is huge valuation under 1.6 trillion. And if we go, let's say people talking to 100,000 or 300,000, so we get more valuation. But Bitcoin, it's people thinking only for the store of value, like only putting for the future investment because they trust about the Bitcoin. And right now, people thinking that we should do more for Bitcoin people, for the Bitcoin holders. So I want to know, like, how this Omnity going to be, you know, the mean for Bitcoin, mean for
Sure.
Bitcoin.
So there's a very long story called the Block Wars, and I will
Yeah,
keep it very very short. But basically, store of value is not the only thing Bitcoin can do. It might be the only feature that the market is obsessed with at the moment. But runes are becoming more popular. Opcat is used by a few
yeah,
miners. You know, there's other features that are coming. BitVM, different implementations. You know, there's a lot of things besides store of value that make Bitcoin exciting. And this is the debate that caused Bitcoin Cash to be born, is that Roger Ver convinced a large group of people that we needed faster block times, larger blocks, and less security. And I'm glad that he lost this debate because he's wrong. We do not need less
yeah,
security.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know, I do think we need different block size software, though. I think that we still never really finished the block wars. This is my personal opinion. I have to say this is not representative of Omnity Network. But we never finished the block wars, so there was never a strategic decision or social consensus about how we should allow larger block sizes. Everyone thought they would always be, you know, like 1 megabyte, 2 megabyte. Well, there was
yeah,
a 4 megabyte block last year. So every time I get into this debate with Bitcoiners online, I remind them, because you didn't set a construct for this, there is always the possibility of a 10 megabyte block. We should get in front of that and set up something that allows larger blocks with disincentive. I'm always the one to advocate for a weight of weight system. For example, if you spend 10 times the market average on fees, can you get 10 times the average block size? No, that's unreasonable. But maybe if you spend 1,000 times the previous block average fee, then you can get double the block size that you got in the last block. This is some theory. It's a silly, longer discussion. But because we never solved the block wars, I think we're going to end up talking about Bitcoin as data again in the next few years. The easy example for this is runes, because runes is very discrete. You don't have to have very high amount of data on chain to utilize runes, which is why we selected it at Omnity Network. But it reminds us that there is still an ongoing debate, that this debate may never end. That Bitcoin is not just a store of value, even though that is its most important feature.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think with this, it's essentially turning Bitcoin into the grand central station of of blockchain, and how people know, or how people can be understanding easily about the Omnity, you know, how people can easily understand how Omnity works.
So Omnity is a hub. It's a system of
Oh,
interfaces that
okay.
reach every blockchain. That's why Omnity and not, multiply. We set up these light clients on
Yeah.
ICP logic, and this allows for many different blockchains to be reached, but all these different blockchains have different security models. And sometimes the security goes up and sometimes the security goes down. It depends. There's all kinds of details. But if we're using blockchain assets from Bitcoin and bringing them to other blockchains of lower security, you're always moving a higher trust asset to a lower trust environment. You're not moving a low trust asset to a higher trust environment.
Yeah.
So in this way, we're very comfortable with Bitcoin as the sort of asset base that we can always use to, bring a very well secured asset to another blockchain. So this hub, for anyone is to have the most secure asset and to have the most flexibility. You need some tools to, take advantage of the best of both worlds.
Okay, okay, okay. If you mention about the Omnity or Omnichain is like the hub that connect to any chains like Bitcoin, ETH, or layer one, layer
Solana.
two, layer three, yeah, Solana. How how about some cross-chain transaction is like face some issue like high latency or transaction failures. How the Omnity going to be address this challenge?
So this is built into our protocol. We call it tickets. But basically, whenever you attempt to initiate a transaction through the Omnity bridge, you're already generating a record that entitles you to that value. So if
Yeah.
the transaction fails, or what's called the far end, that other chain that you're trying to reach, if it's like, let's say, Solana is off at the moment, it happens to
Yeah.
Solana once in a while, right? If you try to
Yeah.
make the transaction to Solana and it fails because it can't succeed, then the only thing it can do is wait and try again, or your assets will be returned. Because you're locking
Mm.
up your own assets and you're starting at the point of submitting a transaction with a record, it's not like you make the TX first and then you get the ticket. No, you're getting the ticket as you submit the transaction. It happens at the same time. So there's always a record that you sent the assets. There's no chance for them being lost, only that you would have to recover them if the other chain, magically disappears.
Oh, so if the transaction is going to be something wrong, so the fund is going to be returned to the to the first wallet, right?
Yes, and it's also non-custodial. So don't think that it's us, in the background moving
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah.
This is the protocol behavior.
Oh, it's a protocol behavior. Cool. 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 So there's always been risk for to this, right? There is
Hmm.
always been
Hmm.
a risk for in the term of security, and then when people interaction with the cross chain, I think there is almost have been risk. So how you guys can you share like any specific measure about the Omnity that has taken again potential of exploit or hacks in the future?
So many bridges like Wormhole and Axelar,
Yeah.
they have to be administered, right? They need liquidity, but they also need management. They need someone to be running the code. Even one that's a really strong validator network like XP. They're a very a big validator network, I should say, because each one of XP's nodes runs a node for each blockchain that they're linking up to. I think it's 17 now or something. It's a high number. It's more than 10. So there are other points of failure for other blockchains that are based on liquidity, that are based on secondary execution, and sometimes that are based on custodial properties, like them managing the money. For example, I give you $5 here, you get $5 over there. That's liquidity-based bridging, and we don't do that because each of the interfaces that were operating through the protocol on ICP um, are light clients and are not liquidity based mechanisms. Uh, Although that means that there may not be as many dollars at any one time that shows up on the Explorer, there's not a central point of failure where we can take money, lose money, or otherwise surrender keys that would cause a problem. Now, I mentioned that we operate the hub protocols and we maintain those light clients because sometimes, Ethereum makes a change. You have to update the system that posts transactions to Ethereum. This is the only potential risk, and we have this managed in two ways. One is multi-sig, which is standard practice, and the other one um, is the segmentation of duties, as I would call it.
Okay.
You can refer to this different ways, but basically, Omnity Hub is a logical concept where you have one contract that does some orchestration, but each of the independent links to these other blockchains, they have what's called their own routes. These are independent contracts that manage independent light clients and sometimes nodes. And that means that if, one person were to try to attack Omnity's protocol, number one, they wouldn't be able to utilize the hub's keys in order to access all these other components, the routes and the light clients. But the same is true in the opposite. If someone was able to get those keys for whatever reason from the light clients, they still wouldn't have it from the hub. So Omnity Network has to be hacked more than three times, three different ways, with three different sets of keys that all have independent security in order to have an exploit be successful. And in traditional IT, we call this layered security. We make sure that there's not one single point of failure, even one that's very well protected. We make sure there is no single point of failure where Omnity could be, let's say, damaged by malicious intent.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned about using ICP. So why Omnity? Because I know former you guys is called Octopus Network. So why you choose ICP and why ICP?
So let me explain why we chose near in the past for Octopus Network, because that
Yeah.
helps sort of make sense why we made the change. Um, in the past, we were looking for very efficient, affordable Rust environment for automation. We were
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, you can do stuff in Rust here, but how do you find an environment where you can do one thing and then, trigger many other operations, right? So this was highly, highly beneficial for us in Near Protocol. And I think at one point we were running 50 different contracts to maintain our previous product at Octopus Network. But that experience of automation and Rust environments, that led us to decide that if we were going to use a different platform than Near, it would have to be more integrated with Bitcoin while keeping some of the same properties, friendly to automation, Rust affordability, etc. So we moved over to ICP because our last product in Near Protocol actually has ICP as a core component in order to communicate between an independent Cosmos chain
Yeah.
and Near Protocol itself.
Okay. Okay. So that's term about the cross chain and also interoperability. So speaking of security, let's dive into how Omnity leverages Bitcoin. So let's start with staking. How the concept of Bitcoin staking on the Omnity.
So we talked about Bitcoin staking while we were working on a product with EigenLayer in the past. It was called AVS. If you look up
Yeah,
EigenLayer
yeah, I
AVS,
know. Yeah,
you
I know
see
it.
this is, you lock up assets and then there is a layered lockup and you use
Yeah,
these to conduct off-chain operations. The on-chain is the locked up disincentive. You lose your money if you don't do the thing you were supposed to do. We were working on this product earlier this year, and we were trying to bring Bitcoin security to other blockchain templates that we had worked with in the past, like Polkadot Chain, like Cosmos Chain. But the market valuation for this kind of block space security, it's not very high. There are
mm,
some individuals who think very highly of it, us included. But if the market doesn't have a valuation for these things, we can't justify changing our product and our value capture because we don't have any equity. We only have our tokens. If we're going to bring a product to the market, it has to be valued by the market. Otherwise, we know we're going to
yeah,
reduce the value of our token. So we decided to put that product on ice. And in the meanwhile, we are considering some other product updates that include Bitcoin staking, but we're not really ready to talk about the details for that yet. I can tell you that the December and January community calls will have a lot more information about this, but for now, I can only tell you that there is other players in Bitcoin staking in crypto, and some of them are doing a very good job, and we know some of them very well. So there is a reasonable motivation for us to compete with other products, but also to partner
Mm.
when it's best for the protocol.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if we talk about staking, we have to remember that Bitcoin consensus is different from many other blockchain. How does Omnity ensure that staking Bitcoin doesn't dilute its original security model?
So Omnity is dependent largely on CK BTC,
Okay.
or also chain key BTC, right? This is ICP, let's say program, not software program, but kind of like business program. Basically, there's about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin that is locked up in what's called multi-party computing, or MPC. So a large number, I think it's about 20 now, of ICP node operators are participating in this part of the Bitcoin services. I believe they also all participate in the Bitcoin subnet to provide data services and other operations. But the main purpose of our security with them is depending on that multi-party computing, where no single party could take the Bitcoin, and where I think a maximum of 9 people could drop out of that MPC set, and still all accounts, all keys, all Bitcoin would be individually secure just based on cryptography. This is the largest way that we depend on Bitcoin lockups. I wouldn't necessarily call it staking, but this is the most important sort of Bitcoin product component that we have at Omnity. Because when we are bridging Bitcoin, let's say from the Bitcoin L1 to Osmosis, a Cosmos blockchain, a DEX, when we're doing that, what we're really doing is we are taking people's operations on the BTC L1, letting them lock up their own BTC, giving them CKBTC in exchange for that L1 Bitcoin, and then letting them take that over to Osmosis in a different token format. So that's probably the best example of the security in application. But largely, we are dependent on the incentives and disincentives of ICP to keep a very large bag of Bitcoin secure.
Okay. Okay, cool. So it also help the secure the network also to like additional secure for Bitcoin network. And if we talk that bit after talking about Bitcoin staking and then how the Omnity works, I curious about and I'm interested to know about your token called OT token, right? Yeah,
Yes, so
can you tell us about this OT token?
sure. So we minted our token supply one time, OCT. This is the old token associated with the name Octopus Network, but it's still the only token that we have associated with governance. So this is on Ethereum. You can find the status of all 100 million tokens. But if you check CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap, you'll see that only about 5 million of those tokens are still vested. Some of them are part of the team allocation, which is part of our pay. And I believe the rest of them are for original investors from 2021. It's locked up on Ethereum. So because we're coming from this place where we've already created a governance token, we can't just wipe it out and make a new one. Who would trust us? Why
Mm,
should,
yeah.
if I could just start again if I ever wanted to, right? So initially we were trying to decide how to manage this because we were going to dilute the token supply. We thought that a 5-to-1 ratio would be okay. And we spent some time with this, a difficult decision. And we decided that we can't dilute the governance token. So that means when OCT converts to OT, as of today, we're committed to keep this token supply 100 million flat, not 100 million with a certain amount being added,
Mm,
but with 100 million just static token supply. And because all of these tokens are already minted, we will have a migration period, and we will offer many people, the chance to join our new economy. But also, we have never allowed OCT to be orphaned. There has never been an instance where someone made a mistake handling the token and they weren't able to get their tokens back because we were able to, let's say, temporarily pause a contract of those 50 contracts, which were administratively controlled by us, and then make sure someone got their money back. So, in that same spirit of not wanting our holders to ever lose OCT tokens, we want to make sure when we migrate to OT that it's also a robust, permanent, effective governance solution. This is why we're delaying the migration because it was planned for this year. We delayed it because we want to start an SNS. We want to take advantage of
Oh,
DAO tooling on
yeah,
ICP. So because of this, we realized that we have to take a little bit more time, do what I call a burn in, or sort of make sure the product is running stably for an extended period of time before we stack more risk on top of the product itself. So the OT token is expected in early Q2 of next year, and the only reason that we hesitated on this governance token is because we understand, governance tokens are a very social thing, right? Like you can't just, stop the governance token or delete the old one and make a
yeah,
new one.
yeah.
This is not acceptable. There is one other token to be aware of, which is also not OT token, and this is the rich token. It's very popular for use because we give it away and we still support liquidity for it. So some people will get it for free from us and then go sell it, and that's fine. But this token is not just a meme, it's not just a giveaway.
Okay.
It is also our utility token, and we're going to be able to talk more about the utility coming up. But also, there are some hints in our community calls. If you want to go listen to our community call, you'll hear about the status of this token, which has a much larger static token supply, about 8.8 billion.
Okay. Okay, cool. And if you mentioned you guys will go to the SNS, and we hope it's going to be well, you guys will be patient. And but I want to hear your opinion about decentralized governance, because this word is like tricky for some people, for some community. How does
Sure.
Amnesty prevent the concentration of power among a few large token holder?
So if you look at the Ether scan that shows you
Yeah.
this 100 million OCT, it looks like there's 30% and 30% that is, somehow unsafe or stuck in one holder. You'll see that 30% of the supply at least is on near protocol. I think the other 30% might be CKOCT. I'm not sure, but you can check our token supply. We do not
Yeah.
have any holders with more than, I think, 8%. But this is not the main governance concern that we have, because you can see the price raise and lower, and people will sell and people will buy. Token concentration, as long as it's not at a problematic level, like let's say 20% to one party, because the token supply is not unhealthy. We're focused on the sort of like larger DAO challenges that are common for everyone. I think the easiest way to describe this is using MakerDAO as an example.
Yeah.
So MakerDAO has a kind of a strange on-chain US dollar treasury based product, but the product that they have is very, very sharp. Hey, this is to, get DAI out. This is to take in other assets and mint DAI. We want to be an on-chain bank. Here's the focus. So this is how we see the example of a successful DAO operation, is that you have to be very, very focused on the subject matter. There are some other successful DAOs like SciDAO and a few others, but if they're not focused on a product, they're very, very tightly focused on something. They have a social consensus that there is some, important critical thing that has to be done. There's key people that are passionate about it. And by the way, majority of DAO governance and operations, you can check the stats for this. There's usually kind of the heroes. There's the majority who are kind of, I don't want to say they go along, but they are a little bit more looking for representative governance. They follow the influencer or KOL who shares their opinion, and then there's an inactive group. So because we don't want to hit too many of the same problems that all DAOs face, we know that we have to do a couple of things. Number one, be very, very focused on the product and the implementation. Number two, as you said, make sure the token supply isn't too stuck, because if one person has too many tokens, it's going to defeat the purpose of the DAO. And three, make sure that the product, while we're focused on it, that we can adequately grow it into new markets, into new utility with new features. Because if you make the best Flappy Bird right now that you absolutely can, and it becomes a wild hit and everybody loves Flappy Bird, well, congratulations, you've got your thing. But you won't be able to hold on to a market more than the time that that Flappy Bird is appreciated. There was a short period of time after Flappy Bird was removed from the Play Store where people were buying iPhones for thousands of dollars just to get that game because it was a collectible. That was the beginning of the sort of downturn of popularity for that app. That's not something that we can accept as a business. We have to make sure that we're launching new products, that we're listening to the market, and that we're following what we believe as long term, viewers of the market. I'm not the only one on the team who's got more than 10 years in crypto.
Okay, okay, cool, cool. So that's the answer. That's the answer
It's a very long
because
answer. Sorry.
yeah, no, no, no. Because it's important for me. I saw that some of people start to noisy about the DAO mechanism, about the a large token control the voting. So it's clear. It's clear for your answer. And let's move and shift to. I want to talk about the Omnity, like in the achievement. Like I just saw that 7 hours ago you made a tweet about over 1 million and Bitcoin has landed on the Osmosis zone via Omnity Hub. So, is there any other achievement that people need to know about the Omnity in the last few weeks or last month?
I mean, this is definitely the most recent one. We're very excited and happy for more use for Osmosis alloyed assets. That's the sort of
Mm,
capital A program or phrase that Osmosis uses. We're very happy for them. I'm a longtime user of Osmosis. You'll see my Twitter PFP is the original Osmosis NFT called the Bad Kids. We're we're very very happy to see Osmosis success. We've also recently added the Core DAO BTC Layer 2. So
okay.
this was a long time in the making. We had been kind of petitioning their governance and speaking with them on spaces and sharing other sort of speaker panels with them. That was a very big one that we were excited for. There is another very large market cap Bitcoin L2 that we've been waiting to acquire, and the CEO kind of owes me lunch, so we'll see how soon we can get that one added. But I'm not going to tease anything that I can't commit to in the coming few weeks. But the largest accomplishment is definitely that. There have not been other significant product updates because we're trying to bake our new product. In January, we won't just have a new president, we'll also have a new Omnity product called the Runes Exchange Environment, or REE.
Oh,
Uh, you can see like a sort of cute name for this or a short name for this called Rich Swap. But basically, right now, whenever you want to buy or sell runes on Magic Eden, you'll see you have to do it in lots. You have to do this like grouping of assets. It's
yeah.
a little bit clunky. It's difficult to manage AMM. So we want to do our own version of a runes AMM DEX. Everything's going to trade against Bitcoin on our version of the DEX, but that means that everybody else is open to make their own DEX. Literally take that template from us, deploy for just a few dollars via ICP, and then they can pair dog with USDH. They can pair dog with MIM. Any two runes can be put into a pair. We just want to maintain the ones that are, BTC on one side of the pair. That's the most reasonable business for us because we're longtime Bitcoin fans and holders. So there is a very exciting product coming, and we
So
have
that
announced that already, but I can't tell you much more.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So I think communities should be follow the Omnity Network on Twitter, and if you see that you just uh, live on the core DAO, is there any opportunity or what the next change will be integration with the Omnity?
I'm not sure if this is public information or not, so I'm going to leak it anyway. We
Yeah,
had been looking
link
at
it.
some, we had been looking at some other chains, and we're still finalizing our ZK research. We'll be very excited to
Oh
add orbit
yeah.
chains and things like that. There's a lot of business there, but these are kind of like enclaves. It's kind of like a destination of a market. It's not
Mm.
really a way to go through. So instead of ZK EVM chains as our next highest priority, a ton blockchain will be our next highest priority. I don't think that was actually public information, but you can publish this because I think maybe by the time it comes out, hopefully ton will be coming very, very soon. A ton blockchain is having an accelerator, I think, right now. There's a long history of success in the Ton ecosystem. And of course, we've applied to work with them because we made a Telegram mini app. So we're kind of all fans of Ton, even though it's not nearly as old as Bitcoin. But Ton took a very long time to launch, and we appreciate the consideration that went into that. So Ton is a very different blockchain to all the others that we've integrated so far. We're taking some time to make sure that the client that we post on ICP is stable and can construct all the transactions the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, yeah. So at the Omnity Hub, I saw that if people transfer Bitcoin to some of chain, we will get help you get rich or red envelope. So how the rate of these people that get the envelope like help you get rich, because this is very huge. To be honest, a few days ago or a few weeks ago, I made a tweet about rich. A lot of community that mentioned about rich, and yeah, can you tell me more?
I can tell you that our main product focus is Bitcoin assets and not fungible
Yeah.
Bitcoin. It is possible to send fungible Bitcoin over the bridge as long as you can make your own contract calls on ICP
Mm.
and still operate a Bitcoin wallet as part of those calls. So there is room to use our bridge for anyone for fungible Bitcoin, but this is not our business focus. Earlier I used this phrase burn in, right? This is an engineering term basically saying that you can't just test things. You can do all the pre-production, smoke load, UAT. You can do all kinds of testing on software before it goes out into the world. But once it goes out into the world, you should probably still give it some time before you make any significant changes or, feel comfortable with it. So this burn-in period, we're kind of taking an extended view of this to say that as long as we can manage the more intense data and the extra metadata of Bitcoin assets over about a year's time, then we will start much more actively bridging fungible Bitcoin. So, like you were saying about rich and red envelopes, this is kind of the main target is runes. Hope you get rich is the rune itself. We're hoping that people will bridge runes from the Bitcoin layer one to other blockchains. Whether they do or don't do that, either way, we're going to complete our burn-in
Yeah.
period, and then we'll be more open to supporting fungible BTC in the user interface. Until then, you got to figure that out on your own.
Cool, cool. And maybe I want to ask, like, oh, where do you see Omnity in the next few years? Because how do you, and also how do you envision that Bitcoin role will be in the DeFi ecosystem?
Sure. So I think that we kind of already have a basis for how to value what assets. I think that this is not a very common opinion, but I think it's very, very easy to verify. And some other engineers share this opinion with me. Um, Bitcoin and a few other blockchains compete for the highest Nakamoto efficient and the highest overall block space security, right? So they are the kind of like core, the base assets. On the other end of the spectrum, you have something like Solana, where it's doing 40,000 transactions per second, and the verification of those transactions is still reasonable, but it doesn't input nearly as much work. It doesn't require nearly as much effort from a node, and the requirements are quite different. So I think that this is sort of the beginning of how we've always seen this branching out, where there should be highly secure, highly valuable, very, very permanent block space. And there should also be speculative, low security, I want to play with memes kind of block space. It doesn't mean that you can't put memes on Bitcoin. Memes on Bitcoin will last forever. Pepe on Bitcoin is very important. Doge on Bitcoin is very important. Dog on Bitcoin is very important. you know, but this sort of low security block space, this is intended for high volume of activity. It's not intended for a large block space, or sorry, for a high security block space. They sometimes have large blocks. Everything between those 2 points covers all of the different types of blocks that you can use in public blockchains today. So that means that Bitcoin is probably going to continue to be the highest security asset because it is still the longest chain, the longest public chain to date. Um, and simultaneously, these other assets that come along on other blockchains, other tools, they're still very valuable, but they don't want to compete on security. This was a thing years ago with Ethereum Classic, with ETH originally being proof of work. there was an attempt in the past to compete with Bitcoin directly. Now there's no interest for that. So it's a different type of solutioning or sort of design for intention to say, hey, I want this highly secure block to hold this important information or these important assets for me. Over here, I have these other blocks, like let's say even Polygon or Near or something else. They intentionally have lower block space so they can produce more transactions, so they can complete rounds of consensus more quickly, things like that. So I think this is how we'll see it in the future. Like companies, they bring their loyalty programs to Polygon very frequently. Part of it's because Polygon has a great business outreach program, but part of it is because a loyalty program doesn't need the same security level as Bitcoin. When you go get your little loyalty card like punched at the ice cream shop or whatever because you shop there multiple times, this is valuable to you, but it's not like gold. If you
Yeah.
lose that card, you'll go back to the ice cream shop again and you'll get the card again. So I think this is how people should see it is, you may have a gold coin in one hand and Chuck E. Cheese token in the other hand. Chuck E. Cheese token doesn't deserve a gold level of security. So even if you can apply it, it doesn't necessarily fit. So we can always expect that we'll come back to this kind of conversation. There's other components, but this is how I personally see it. And I think our work at Omnity is in parallel with this, that the more secure a blockchain's blocks are, and the longer that chain is, the more valuable it is over time. And the more a blockchain wants to do high throughput, for example, Stacks, they just completed
Yep.
their Nakamoto upgrade, right? So now their transactions reach finality much faster, but they slightly lowered security in order to make that happen. Nothing wrong with that. They want to approach the consumer market. They are trying to keep their security pinned to Bitcoin without saying, hey, you should do these assets like stamps or SRC20, as they call them, on Bitcoin. So this is a longer term thing. It's a little bit difficult to envision because some of us see blocks as blocks, but ultimately not all blocks are the same. And assets using higher security blocks over time, we can expect that they will be appreciated for those kinds of properties over time. Right now, people don't care very much. If Doge is on Bitcoin or if Doge is on Solana, people will go where the liquidity is. But we're still very, very early to this market, so we know that will change in the future.
Yeah, yeah. So if I see that Bitcoin right now is evolving from just like a digital gold into a DeFi powerhouse in the next coming year, and yeah, exciting time ahead. Before we wrap up, Sheldon, before we wrap up, let's make our listener know how they will be involved with the Omnity, like how they find source to know about your update or how to join with the Omnity. Become part
Sure,
of the
sure.
Omnity.
Please come find us on x.com/Omnity Network. We have monthly calls and we want your questions, or if you want to throw a tomato, you'll have your chance for that too. The product is bridge.omnity.network. We have other products that are sort of in beta, they're public beta. But that's the best way to come find us. We have the link tree posted on Twitter, so if you prefer Discord or Telegram or something else, we're happy to chat there. But Twitter is our main source of socials. So please come find us on x.com/Omnity Network and go take your assets over to bridge.omnity.network and give it a try.
Cool. Cool. Amazing. So guys, go follow to the Twitter, to the official. You can join to the official social media. And once more, thank you, Sheldon, for coming to this podcast and explain about the Omnity. And we learned a lot about the Bitcoin, right? So right now we know that Bitcoin is huge and you guys to the markets and connecting the dots. It's amazing. It's pleasure to hear about the Omnity from you, Sheldon.
Thanks so much, Pep. Happy to join you.
Okay, okay, cool. Thank you so much, Sheldon. I think that will be end of our podcast. Thank you.
All right.
Bye,
See you
Sheldon.
next time.
See you. Bye.